Hi, my name is Duston Baranow-Watts. I'm an apprentice stage manager with the Arts Club Theatre Company, and today I wanted to talk about the stage management prep week and taping the floor of the rehearsal hall.
Hi, my name is Paige Fraser. I was going to be a cast member in Kink at my hair at Arts Club, and I'm here today helping Dustin set up for what would have been our first week of rehearsals.
You might not know that the stage manager or the head stage manager for production is usually engaged for an entire week before the start of rehearsals, and the assistants and apprentices usually at least one day, depending on the show and the company. We do a lot of things during this week, including meeting with all the departments, talking to the director, making sure that everything is in place for the start of rehearsals, starting paperwork, and one of the big things that we do is we tape out the floor of the rehearsal hall. We transfer the set designer's ground plan to the floor of the rehearsal hall so that we know where the walls and platforms and anything someone might run into or anything that might affect the action is going to be on set.
So for an actor, the first day that we come into the rehearsal hall and we see all the tape out on the floor and we see the first shapes of what this set's going to be like, for us that's usually the first time that we've seen anything about what the set's going to look like. So that's our first inclination of what our physical boundaries are for when we start making choices and when we're up on our feet with our director and our other actors playing around in the designer's world. So it's really important when we walk in and we see that work that the stage management team has put into before we've ever stepped in the room of what they've done to make sure that we can do our job. It's a really symbiotic relationship.
For this video, we've gotten permission to use the set design for Kink in My Hair at the Arts Club Theatre Company, which is designed by Kevin McAllister. The first thing that we usually do is we measure the ground plan, and we get the ground plan from the set designer or the tech department, depending on where we are in the process. And it's a scale drawing. So this one is in half-inch scale, so every half inch on the ground plan equals 1 foot in real life. And there's two main ways to measure. The first and kind of easiest to conceptualize is to go up and over, which means you go up the center line and over stage left or stage right. But because this one has a lot of rounded corners and fewer straight lines, the easier way to do it is to triangulate by picking 2 points on the ground plan or in the theater and then measuring the distance between the intersection of those 2 points and the corner of what you're measuring, laying down the dots and then connecting them. It sounds more complicated than it is. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to start to measure out the main pieces of the set. Here I'm using a scale ruler to take measurements of the ground plan. I changed my method of attack pretty quickly to measuring up and over, just because of the space and the time that we have here. The ground plan is a top-down view of the set, used to show where items are in relation to each other. It looks like it could be drawn from above with the theater roof removed, but it's actually a section, drawn as if a plane were slicing through the set at 5 feet or 180 centimeters high. This is a more useful drawing to have. We are measuring the corners of important features by their distance upstage from the plaster line and then stage left or right from the center line. These imaginary lines stretch from the back of the proscenium opening behind the apron or thrust on either side of the stage and then bisect the space respectively. Now that we have some measurements, we can start to lay them down on the floor in the space. So we just marked out the center line in the rehearsal hall. I'm going to use the light blue to mark out the center line and the plaster line. The plaster line is the imaginary line from that spans between the back of the proscenium opening on the stage. And that's kind of like our 0, 0 point of coordinates. I'm going to use the light blue so that it's not too bright. It's a little bit of a personal preference whether or not to put these lines down, and not every director and choreographer loves them, but some do. And I think that they really help to get an abstract sense of the set and the spacing within the room that you're in. Now that I've taped out these two lines, I'm just setting and taping down a long tape measure along the center line. This way we can just walk back along it instead of measuring back from the plaster line every time we need to put something down. So next we're just going to start taping out the walls of the set. We started out by taping some of the more important walls and features. You see me running back and forth a lot in this video to look at my notes for the measurements. Generally, this process goes the fastest if you have 3 people in the room. 1 to call out the measurements, and 2 to measure in the space and lay down the tape on the floor. So in order to accomplish the taping, I'll just give Paige a measurement of, say, 10 feet 5 inches upstage and 9 feet stage right. So she'll then walk back along the center line 10 feet 5 inches, and then we'll pull out that horizontal tape measure 9 feet to stage right, then mark that corner. Once we have each corner of a wall or object taped down, we just connect the sides together. So this set has some curved walls to it. One way to approximate them in the rehearsal hall is to just lay out either end of the curve and then the midpoint of each one, and then pull the tape back to meet all 3 of these points. You can then smooth the edges out a little bit, and you can add more points along the curve to be more precise, but after all it is just tape pretending to be walls, so you can get by as long as you can get a really good sense of where the wall will be in actuality. Okay, we're back after taking a minute to change camera angles, and we're now just moving on to the downstage apron, which is the piece of the stage that thrusts past the proscenium into the audience, and the downstage edge of the revolving platform, which goes along with it in the set. We're measuring these in the same way. We're just changing the direction of that tape measure from pointing upstage to going downstage. So these edges are of course curved as well, and we're going about it in that same way that we did the wall from before. We're striving for a little bit less precision than you necessarily would in real life, but in the end it looked really quite close to the edge of the stage at the Granville Island, so that's a good sign. I'll also say that we are quite lucky at the Arts Club to have a rehearsal hall that is able to fit almost all of the theater space in it. In other places we often find ourselves kind of deciding what part of the stage is best to sacrifice in order to fit the whole set in, but it's quite a privilege not to really have to think about that here. So this is just about as far as we got today. Here is a pan of what the studio looked like before we started taping. So we ran out of time before we could quite finish everything, but our next steps would have been to finish the edge of that revolving platform going all the way around upstage, and then to put down the corners of all of the props like the salon chairs, and then mark out where any of the hanging objects or flown scenery, like this beautiful moon disc, would have landed. But overall, you can get a sense of what the major features of the set would have been, and here's what the floor looked like after we were done today. Thank you for watching us tape the floor, or part of the floor today, for Kink in My Hair. It was designed by Kevin McAllister, directed by Ray Hogg at the Arts Club Theatre Company's Granville Island Stage. This is actually the 100th year of stage managers being represented by American Actors Equity Association, or the Year of the Stage Manager, as they're calling it online. So we hope you got an interesting glimpse into part of the process of stage managing a show from start to finish. Thank you.